Hi everybody, it's Julie Hannah's story time. We're going to be reading a new book. It's an old and favorite book that I've loved since I was a girl. Today we have a few friends joining us to help us read our book, our fairy tale book, and also just to enjoy the story. So the friends that we have today is, the green one is Goby. He's a dinosaur. Next to him is Monkey Boo. And then there's Teddy. And then right above them, sitting up above, as you can see, is Ribbit. Now Ribbit has on his nice pink pajama that was given to him by Olive. And Olive and Ani, they have met all of them before. So they're saying hi girls and also hi everybody else. Enjoy reading the book. We will be reading from Dean's Gift Book of Fairy Tales. Dean's Gift Book of Fairy Tales. Now this book consists of fairy tales: Cinderella, Babes in the Wood, Sleeping Beauty, Puss in the Boots, Tom Thumb, Hansel and Gretel, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast. Illustrated by Janet and Anne Grahame Johnstone. Dean and Sons Limited, copyright 1967. And today we will be reading Tom Thumb. This is the story we'll be reading, Tom Thumb. Once upon a time, Merlin the magician was on his travels through the countryside when he stopped to rest at the cottage of a farmer and his wife. They were a kind and happy pair, but they told Merlin how much they longed for a son. "Even if he were only the size of my thumb," declared the farmer. Their magician decided to grant their wish, and the pair did indeed have a son. He was a fine little fellow, but he never grew any larger than a thumb, so he was always called Tom Thumb. Little Tom had lots of fun, being so small, though it had its disadvantages also. His bigger friends liked games with cherry stones, and one day Tom amused himself by creeping inside the bag which held the stones and stealing them. The big boys pretended to be cross and tied him up in the bag until he hopped about in a temper. Some adventures were not his own fault. One day the farmer's cow saw a little Tom hopping gaily through the grass, and she snapped him up with a mouthful of sweet green grass. "Oh, I must get out of here," said Tom. He wriggled and tickled until the cow gave a huge sneeze. "Achoo!" Puff! Out popped Tom, right into his mother's outstretched apron. Tom spent many happy hours on the kitchen table whilst his mother did her baking. She warned him about falling into things, and he did his best to keep out of mischief. One day, however, he grew careless and reached out for a currant in the pudding his mother was preparing. He overbalanced and fell plop into the sticky mixture. Tom's mother, in a hurry as usual, tied the cover on the basin and fastened little Tom inside. She popped the pudding into the pan, where it soon began to bounce about in the hot water. "What is the matter with the pudding today?" thought Tom's mother uneasily, hoping that it would stop. But it did not stop. As the water grew hotter, poor Tom kicked about more. "Mercy! The pudding is bewitched!" cried the poor woman. She lifted the pan lid and threw the noisy pudding as far as it would go. It hit a wandering tramp on the head with a bump. Poof! As he rubbed his head, he peered at what had hit him, and when he saw that it was a nice big pudding, he lifted it up with a high glee. "It must be a magic pudding to appear from nowhere," chuckled the tramp. "It will taste good." But he never had a chance to try, because at that moment Tom let out a yell for someone to rescue him. "Rescue me!" The tramp thought the pudding a little too enchanted for him, and threw it away, running off as fast as he could. The basin bumped against the stone, and luckily for Tom, it smashed, and he was able to crawl out and go home to wash off that sticky pudding. Tom's mother made him a parasol from a handkerchief, and he used to sail up through the air holding it. One day, a big bird thought that Tom was a gay insect, good to eat, and he swooped down and picked Tom up. They flew over hill and dale before the bird saw his mistake and dropped Tom in disgust. Down fell Tom towards a huge castle, perched on a rocky crag overlooking the sea. The sea breeze puffed Tom through a window into a room where an enormous giant was eating his breakfast porridge. When little Tom fell plop into his porridge, the giant just spooned Tom up into his great mouth. Tom kicked so hard that the giant plucked him out again and tossed him away as he would a fly. Tom's troubles were by no means over. He floated quietly with the breeze on to the silvery sea, where he rested as light as a thistle down. Tom enjoyed this until a big fish popped his head up and eyed him curiously. "I wonder if you're good to eat," he said. "No, I'm not good. No, I'm not," cried Tom. "Nobody likes eating me." But the fish swallowed him, and there Tom would have been to this day if the king's fishermen had not caught that very fish soon afterwards. The fish was cooked very lightly, unfortunately for Tom, and served on a silver platter before the king. "This looks good," smiled the king, serving a slice to himself. It was the very slice of fish in which Tom, tired out with his adventures, was dozing. He stretched his arms and yawned right in the king's face. The king was delighted with the little fellow and invited him to live at the court for good. Tom told the king about his parents, and the kind monarch gave him a sack of gold to take home to them and tell them of his good fortune. "Come back, Tom," said the king, and Tom promised. Tom enjoyed being with his parents again, but after a time he remembered his promise to the king. So bidding his father and mother a loving goodbye, Tom started back to court again, wondering what new and strange adventures lay ahead for him. For that there would be lots more such adventures, he had not the slightest doubt. I am one of those people who are simply bound to have adventures, he thought to himself as he journeyed along. How pleased the king was when Tom returned to court. Look at the king. He's got on some beautiful clothes, and there you can see Tom sitting on or standing on his hands. How are you liking the story so far, friends? Goby, Monkey Boo, Teddy, and Ribbit, are you enjoying it? Oh yes? Great, wonderful. Okay, friends, let's continue with the story. Wow, look at the pictures of Tom. How wonderfully he is dressed, riding a wonderful mouse in the fields. Tom told the king how grateful his parents were for the sack of gold, and how glad he was to be back at court once more. "We must have some fashionable clothes made for you, Tom," said the king. "Clothes that are really befit a loyal and well-loved courtier of mine." And he sent for the royal shirt makers, shoemakers, and a famous fairy tailor. And oh, how proud Tom was when his wonderful new clothes were finished. This poem was written by one of the king's courtiers. Of butterfly wings his shirt was made, his boots of chicken hide, and by a nimble fairy blade, all learned in the tailoring trade. His coat was well supplied, a needle dangled at his side, and thus attired in stately pride, a dapper mouse he used to ride. Look at him, a dapper mouse. His shoes of chicken hide, his needle blade, his shirt, his lovely hat with the feathers. Tom commenced on some amazing adventures almost at once. One day he was wandering through the countryside and stepped right in front of a huge toad. "Ribbit! Ribbit!" who, mistaking Tom for some kind of large insect, flicked out its tongue, and if it had not been for a passing butterfly, Tom would have gone down the toad's throat. Ribbit, ribbit. The butterfly carried Tom safely back to court, and Tom told the butterfly to go to the royal rose gardens, where the nectar of the roses was the sweetest in the whole land. Then Tom asked the butterfly if he would kindly take him to visit the queen of the fairies, and the butterfly gladly agreed. Look at Tom riding the butterfly. Amazing. But Tom assured her, the queen was enchanted when she saw Tom. "Why, you must be a fairy too," she gasped. But Tom assured her that he was indeed a mortal. Then she gave him a pair of tiny fairy gloves woven from thistledown, and told him whenever he wanted to visit her, he had only to put the gloves on and say, Little magic gloves of green, take me to the fairy queen. And they would do so. One night Tom thought he would play a prank on the royal chambermaids, as they went on from bedroom to bedroom, lighting the candles and the sticks on the royal dressing tables. Tom would dart from behind a mirror or vase or trinket box and snuff the candles out again. Snuff. Oh dear! The maids did get cross and started blaming each other. Every month, Tom would mount a carrier pigeon named Swiftwing and fly off to visit his parents and tell them stories of his wonderful life at court. His parents loved the stories Tom told, especially the ones where a spider sprung her web around him while he was asleep, and Tom had to pierce it with his trusty needle sword to escape. The spider did get a fright, laughed Tom. One Christmas the king sent the royal coach to fetch Tom's parents to the court for Christmas dinner. What a fine time they had, especially when the king pulled a large cracker with Tom's father, and out popped Tom himself, holding a motto which read, "The very smallest person can be a big success." The very smallest person can be a big success. Friends, did you like the book, Tom Thumb? The story? Well, thank you very much, Goby and Monkey Boo and Teddy and Ribbit for joining us in reading this fairy tale. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope all of you enjoyed Tom Thumb. Thank you. See you again soon. Thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe.